Hello and welcome back to Pokemon Chronicles. Today we are doing part 2 of tropes that I hate because it's been a while, so I feel like it's time. Most of you already know how this works. If you haven't, I did do a video like this before and I will be sure to link that in the cards and the description below. Otherwise, let's get started. The first trope that I want to talk about is the age gap. So this one isn't one that I necessarily hate, but it is one that can be a little bit tricky. I think it's well done when the age gap is appropriate. You know what I mean? Like, so if it's an adult book and the age gap is between two established adults, cool, that is fine. However, I personally think it's a little weird when it's like this person is a family friend and he's known this other person since they were like, I don't know, 12. Now that they're 18, they're interested in a sexual relationship with them. That one feels weird to me. Especially if you're like really close with someone's family and like you're considered family, but then when they turn 18, you're like, oh, well, they're legal now, so we can sleep together. Like, how about no? The next trope is hot for a teacher. I talked about this in a previous video. The biggest example that I can think of is Pretty Little Liars, Arya and Ezra. And I know a lot of people ship them and whatever, and I only watch the TV show, so I don't know how it happened in the books. But in the TV show, if I remember correctly, they meet at a bar, or they hook up. She lies and says she's in college, and then a couple days later, or a couple weeks later, she starts a new school year and he's her English teacher. No, just no to all of it, because it's inappropriate. She's underage and it's an abuse of power because he's the teacher. I'm also watching A Teacher on Hulu right now, which is very cringy but still really entertaining. And in this one, it's a female teacher who is sleeping with one of her high school students. She's also married, and it's just a hot mess. I feel like that situation can really only ever be appropriate if you wait until one, that student's an adult and they're no longer your student anymore, and I feel like that very rarely happens. So I could be totally wrong about that because it's not something that I tend to look for. So if you know any books that have that trope, let me know and I will consider them at least. But I've never seen that trope done in a way where somebody doesn't get in trouble, so not a fan. The next trope that I want to talk about is one that I somehow forgot to mention in my very first video, even though it's probably the #1 trope that I hate, and it's insta-love. I know that there are some people who believe in love at first sight and all of those things, and that's totally fine. I don't think that's a thing. I think lust at first sight is a thing, but love, no, because you can't love somebody without knowing literally anything about them except for what they look like. You can develop a crush maybe at first sight, even though, again, you don't really know anything about that person. But love at first sight? Absolutely not. The next trope is not like other girls. And so Alex from This Is Not a Booktube did a video about how this trope could be something that is positive if it were teaching girls that being different is a good thing, which it is. You don't want to be somebody else. You want to be you. You want to be your authentic self. So Alex is totally right about that. But the problem is that that's not what that trope does. Like, that is not why that trope was created. That's not what that trope is intended to do. I will leave a link to Alex's video because she did have a very good discussion on it. But the issue with the trope is that it's not like other girls in a way that it teaches young girls to put down other girls. You know what I mean? And so it kind of goes hand in hand with girl hate, because it's all about, oh, well, I'm not like them. I'm better than them. So you should want to be with me because I'm not like them, or because I do this thing that they don't do. And it's just fucking stupid. And I don't understand how some of these tropes even start. Who the fuck came up with that? Honestly. And why? And more importantly, why is it still being used? It doesn't need to be used anymore. That trope can die. The last trope that I want to talk about today is the secretly in love with my best friend. I kind of touched on this in my last video as well, when I was talking about how in a lot of YA books in particular, if there is a male and female best friend, the male best friend is always secretly in love with the girl and doesn't tell her, but somehow yet feels entitled to her. And I just couldn't get behind that, because you're not entitled to anybody. Nobody owes you anything. You can't get mad at somebody for not knowing how you feel when you never fucking told them. right? So I had a conversation with someone recently. We were talking about the movie Maid of Honor, I think, with Patrick Dempsey. And that was a prime example of why I dislike this trope. It is one thing when someone starts to develop feelings for someone that they are in a platonic relationship with and they handle it properly. The issue is that they never handle it properly. So the right way to do it would be to, at some point, sit down with them and say, look, I have these feelings for you. I've had them for this amount of time. I'll give you some time to process that, but I needed to be honest with you because, you know, fucking communication is a thing. But instead, and this happens in Maid of Honor as well, it's always, I'm secretly in love with my best friend. I never told them. I slightly resent them for not knowing how I feel about them. And now that I see them happy and in a relationship with somebody else, particularly in the movie, about to get married, now I want them to know how I feel. Make it make sense, because now you're blowing up somebody else's life and ruining their relationship. And I didn't watch Maid of Honor fully through, so I don't know if like the guy who plays Owen Hunt is a good person in that movie. I know how the movie ends, but I don't know everything that leads up to it. So it's just like, why the fuck would you do that? And like, what kind of best friend are you to ruin somebody's happy moment? It doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. So I don't understand why nobody has ever thought to think about that logically and rationally and fucking fix it. So that's my little mini rant for today on tropes that I hate. If you like any of these tropes, let me know. If you've seen them done well in books or movies, let me know, because I would definitely be interested in that. And let me know what tropes you hate or which ones you really love. Honestly, I think I've said this before, the only trope that I can think of that I actually like is enemies to lovers. And I think a part of the reason that I like it is because it's a slow burn, which is the complete opposite of insta-love, which I fucking hate. So let me know how you feel about tropes, particularly romantic tropes. But that's all I have for now, and I'll see you in the next video.